What's up, everybody? Welcome to the early tea time live stream. I am your host, Hunter Vaness. We are presented by Fantasy Points as we are week in and week out. Come join the team over this week at Fantasy Points to see all the awesome golf content that we're putting out each week. We've got ownership projections, fantasy point projections, all of our staff picks, of course, and much, much more. All of this for just $14 a month when you sign up annually. Use that code VANESS22 to get a 10% discount. That's 2 N's and 2 S's, VANESS22. Again, that'll get you a nice 10% discount. This is, again, the early tea time live stream. We are going to go over the John Deere Classic this week. I am pumped because we are heading to the Midwest for, seems like the first time in quite a while. I don't know if there's any other events outside of this little month that we get here, but being from Omaha, there's only 3 or 4 events that come to this kind of area of the country, which makes sense, right? Like it's not always the best weather up here, but those 2 to 3 to 4 that we get, I at least get excited for them, even if we see kind of a weaker field. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, we're going to preview the John Deere Classic this week. This takes place in Silvis, Illinois. It's part of the Quad Cities. Begins a small stretch of events in the Midwest, like I was saying. There's a few later in Detroit and Minnesota later in July. All of these events are Birdie Fest, where the winning score typically sees around -20 or lower. Gives it that classic term of Midwest Birdie Fest. I have no clue who came up with that. Someone on PGA Twitter did that, of course, but I'm definitely stealing that. Perfect name, right? Lots of birdies go down at these courses. So we have one of the weaker fields that I can remember in quite a while. I, saw it coming Saturday night when I tweeted it out, but we've had some WDs now too. Davis Riley, of course, Daniel Berger. So, Webb Simpson is the top price golfer, which we've seen that before, but holy cow, it gets pretty bad after that. But it's just kind of weird because a lot of the times when we see these weaker fields, they mirror like a major or like the match play event, for example, like Corrales, Barracuda, Barbasol. We'll see some of those actually next month. But, many of the top players in the world are headed overseas to play in the Scottish Open next week. And then in preparation, of course, for the Open Championship the week after that, which is the final major of the year. So I think, in my opinion, this is also the first event where the tour is kind of feeling what I'm calling the live effect. So just the effect of having another rival tour take away some of your golfers and take away some of the guys that could potentially be teeing it up this week. So, of course, this isn't the first live event that's going on this week. If you don't know, there's a live event in Portland, but this, again, is one of the first times that they're feeling the effect of that. The first event that they had was in London, I believe. But that was going on at the same time as the RBC Canadian Open when Rory McIlroy took that down right. It had a really great field. Both tours were kind of rivaling each other. I think the PGA Tour probably got more eyes on it. Of course, it's the better tour, of course. But I just feel like this is the first time where we have a really weak field. Portland's probably going to get a little bit more buzz this week. There's showdown in DFS for Portland this week. So, I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely going to be tuning in just to see what's going on over there. But this is definitely one of the first weeks where, the tour is going to feel that effect. I don't know if they're going to lose eyeballs, of course, but as far as the field goes, it's much weaker than we've typically seen in previous years. And I know this, event is typically pretty weak, but this year is pretty rough. This event has a few golfers that have been extremely consistent here throughout the years. I'll talk about them a little bit later. Steve Stricker, Zach Johnson, Ryan Moore, they've gone 41 for 43 in cuts made in this event, which is pretty outstanding. Not every made cut is, of course, a top 10 finish, but all 3 of those guys have won here at least once. Steve Stricker won 3 years in a row. Pretty solid cash options, in my opinion. They all come in around 7,000 to 7.5K. So I'll talk about some more course history options in a little bit. Yeah, I agree, Andrew. Yeah, feel free to hit up these YouTube comments too. Andrew brings up just how guys withdrawing or WDing really impacted this field too. I agree with you, man. It's made things pretty tough, but I kind of want to bring this up too. I actually like DFS events like this that have weaker fields, and I really want you guys to embrace the pain this week. Do not take the week off this week. You can maybe lower your your betting size right. Like, for example, if you normally play the $60 20 max, maybe just play the $1 20 max this week. But don't abandon your strategy. Don't let the narrative that this field is really weak impact your thoughts on the event, right? Because sometimes when we have these weaker fields, it causes you to kind of say, like, oh, this is a weak field. I'm not going to really put so much time into it. Anyone can win. Why do I'm just going to take the week off, for example. But I feel like a majority of DFS players are having that similar mindset this week, to where there is an advantage to where, again, just people aren't taking it as serious. I also think there's a small advantage of players that are just playing like golf DFS this week because there's nothing else to bet on, right? There's baseball, of course, but the NBA is over, NHL is over, all those showdown events are over. Yes, there's your UFC and that kind of stuff on the weekends too. But from what I remember in previous years, a lot of just casual players tend to play this event or play like these summer events just because there's nothing else to bet on. You can't be playing the NBA finals anymore. There's no NHL, that kind of stuff anymore. So unless you're just grinding, MLB slates each and every week or every day, really, I do think there's quite a few people that will be playing this that haven't been following golf all year long, and they'll definitely have no clue who a lot of these names are. And I think we're going to see some really crazy ownership numbers this week on some of these guys that are kind of safer plays, right? Because they've made a lot of cuts, right? Or they finished third last week or second last week, right? And so they have to do great this week. And everyone's just going to kind of trend to those plays because, again, just not taking this event as serious. So, again, embrace the pain this week. Do not take this week off. Do not let, again, the narrative that this week sucks impact your personal strategy. Okay, again, you can lower your bankroll, right? Save for the U.S. Open or the Open Championship, excuse me. But don't switch up your strategy. Be just as aggressive. Take this week as serious as you would a normal week. So let's move on to this event here, the John Deere Classic, 50% PGA. We'll see. We'll see on that. So moving on, again, the event, it's played at TPC John Deere. It is another TPC course. This one features tree-lined fairways with plenty of dog legs, especially on the front nine. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The course was designed by D.A. Wiebring. I think I have that right. He's an Illinois native who won this event, I think 3 times in the past when it was called the Quad Cities Classic. I think it was titled beforehand. The course is, again, TPC Deere Run. It's a par 71. There's 4 par 3s, 11 par 4s, and 3 par 5s. As far as distance goes, the course measures a little under 7,300 yards. The greens are bent grass, and on average, they're about 5,500 square feet, which is about PGA Tour average. We've seen a lot of smaller greens throughout this summer. I know at the beginning of the year, we saw a lot of larger greens that hit like 6,000, even 7,000 square feet. But these ones are, right about average, a little bit bigger than the ones we've been seeing over the last month or so. As far as other hazards go, there's 3 holes with water hazards, 78 sand bunkers. There's also 4-inch Kentucky bluegrass rough that surrounds the rather wide fairways. So I don't think you really have to worry too much about driving accuracy. Of course, you want to have guys that are putting it in the short grass, but with the wide fairways, don't have to be as precise off the tee. Historic cut line is usually about -1 to -3. We've seen it around that range over the last 15 years or so. The last 5 winners of this event, Lucas Glover won last year at 19 under par. I think this was his 3rd career victory, 3rd or 4th. But it was his first victory since 2011. I think he birdied 5 of the last 7 holes to really, come out from behind, I guess you could say. But it was a pretty exciting Sunday. I thought this event was pretty good last year. So, again, Lucas Glover won 19 under par in 2021. 2020 was canceled due to the pandemic, unfortunately. 2019, Dylan Fratelli won at 21 under par. 2018, Michael Kim set the record for this event. He shot a 27 under par. He was just electric all 4 rounds. Bryson DeChambeau won his first PGA Tour event in 2017 at 18 under par, and Ryan Moore won in 2016 at -22. So, the winning score is typically around -20 if you even go a little bit farther back than that. So, again, Midwest Birdie Fest for sure. You're definitely going to want to be looking at some scores this week. All right, let's dive into these holes here. We will get the first picture up of the first hole. Let me take a drink as we're doing that. All right. So, again, TPC Deere Run. We're going to start off on a par 4 here. It's going to measure 395 yards. And again, when I'm doing these yardages, I wanted to bring this up last week. I look at Fantasy National for their stats, but well, first off, the pins are always moving throughout the rounds. So you're going to see different yardages on different websites. If you go to the PGA Tour website here, some of the yardages will be slightly different than what Fantasy National has. I'm probably going to take what the PGA Tour has on their website there, just because Fantasy National is probably just using the same thing year in and year out. But just be aware if I'm off by 20 yards or so, I get it. I know. So first hole here again is a par 4. The front 9 has a lot of dog legs, and I'll try to emphasize them when we see them. The first one's a dog leg left. Again, measures just under 400 yards. This one is titled the Grand Detour. Again, it's a dog leg left that features 6 total bunkers. There's 2 that will be surrounding the green. There are large oak trees, that protect the left side of the fairway. You can kind of see them in that picture there on the main screen. And then they also sit behind the green as well. There's a bunch of oak trees. Really, it's a tree line course, so there's a lot of trees that surround the fairway, the greens all throughout it, but some big oak trees that kind of make this dogleg a little bit trickier. The fairway is rather wide. You'll see that on a lot of holes. Like I said, the first hole is pretty easy. It sees birdies over 21%, so pretty good opportunity to start off your round pretty hot here, especially when we get into the second hole. That's going to be a par 5. And of course, par 5s are usually the most scoreable. All 3 par 5s here are, typically seeing birdies at 30% or higher. This one is the easiest hole on the course. Over half of the field scores birdie or better on this hole. So, first par 5 on the course here, it measures 561 yards. It plays nearly 50 yards downhill, though, so a good tee shot could really get you close to the hole. The entrance to the green narrows as golfers approach it, and the surface is 2-tiered and pretty small compared to other holes on the course. The hole presents a great opportunity, again, to start off really hot, especially, going off of that first hole, too. These first 2 holes go 21% birdies and 50% birdies on this second hole. 4% eagle rate, too, so lots of guys are hitting it in 2. Just a quick story here, too. I was looking at a different, source for this hole by hole breakdown, of course, other than what we have here on PGA Tour. They have different names for these holes. Some of them are like having to do with tractors, right, or old farm equipment. This one is titled Colonel Davenport, which is named after George Davenport. If you're from Iowa or from the Midwest here, you might be familiar with Davenport, Iowa, which is named after him. He was one of the first people that went there. He co-founded the city. And then they get into this story on the website. So he was murdered in 1845. I just took a wild twist there, I know. And his killers, they were called the Bandits. They went and hid in this barn that sits behind the green on this hole. And you can see this barn that these killers were hiding in when you do the course flyover. So they later escaped by using a ferry that was in the Rock River. That kind of ties into the third hole here. But this hole sits kind of by the river as well. But that was just kind of a funny story. Yeah, Scott, yeah. I'm sure there's much more to the story as well, but just the fact that you can still see the barn there, I'm 99% sure that's the one that they're talking about, right by the green there. So yeah, pretty crazy story. I won't go into all the hole names and stories on that kind of stuff throughout these holes, but that one's pretty interesting. Again, just because you can see that barn, look and see if you can see it when guys are on hole 2 this week. Moving on to hole 3, it's a par 3. It is named Stone House, and there is a stone house that was built by the guy who owned the ferry that the bandits used to escape from the Davenport killing. So this guy lived across the river. I think he was a farmer. He had this ferry, right, and that's what they used to get out of there. So this one's called Stone House because he built a stone house that's actually still there today. The stone house is now used for the headquarters for tournament staff. So just a little bit of a history lesson on this course. There's actually a lot of history that goes into this course. It was really interesting reading into it. So I encourage you all to do the same sometime if you're bored. Favorite, yeah, and golf, yeah. Who needs the 16th hole at TPC Sawgrass when you have the second hole here or third hole at TPC Deere Run, right? All right, so let's talk about golf, right? So the 186-yard par 3 has a greenside bunker in the front. It also has a green that runs from the front to the back, so a little bit different than you typically see. I guess par 3s typically have that, but so it'll make it a little bit difficult. The third hole is this is the third most difficult hole on the course. Excuse me. Can't talk here. So moving on. Hole 4. This is a par 4. It measures 454 yards. It is titled Friendship Farm, which used to be there was a farm on this property that was called Friendship Farm. It used to be a horse breeding farm. So this hole features a large oak tree that actually splits the fairway into kind of two separate fairways that eventually combine together. We see a dogleg right into a green that's protected by two different bunkers. This green is narrow and it slopes from the back to the front. This ranks 10th in difficulty, so right there in the middle, it sees birdies almost 20% of the time. If you're looking at showdown purposes this week, I'd say the front nine is definitely easier than the back nine. So if you're looking at guys that are, again, looking for those birdie streaks, right, probably you're going to want to look at this front nine guys that are starting on the front. I don't think it's that crazy though, but these next few holes, 19% birdies, 18%, 20%, 17%, 18% birdies. So quite a few birdie opportunities on this front nine. So this one, again, is 10th in difficulty, sees birdies almost 20% of the time. Moving on, hole 5, it is a dogleg right. It is a par 4 that measures 433 yards. It has a wide landing area in the fairway, but the second shot is the key shot here. The green is protected by trees on the right side of the dogleg and 3 bunkers on the front right side of the surface of the green, as well as many elevation changes throughout the hole too. Hey, Dan. Nice to see you in here. Thanks for joining, everybody. Like I said, too, I appreciate you all spending some time with me here tonight. Hopefully, you're learning something about this awesome golf course that we get to see this week, TPC Deere Run, right? Thanks for joining in, though. I appreciate you all, especially if you're on YouTube, too. If you could hit that subscribe button, I will love you forever. Okay, moving on, we have hole 6 now, I believe. This is a par 4. It is kind of drivable for some players. It's measuring 367 yards long. It is the second shortest par 4. It is a dogleg right. You can see trees that protect the right side of the fairway. So never mind, it's a dogleg right, so it's not really going to be drivable. It's going to be more of a strategic hole. There's a large bunker on the front right side of the green, and the fairways are rather wide. You definitely do not want to miss them, though. Again, there's really wide fairways on this course, but if you miss these fairways, there's lots of trouble. 4-inch rough, there's trees. There's not just one tree. There's a whole forest of trees throughout a lot of these holes too. So really make sure that you're hitting the short grass, even if it's a rather wide fairway. But yeah, lots of long rough and trees throughout the course. Moving on, we have a par 3 here. This is the 7th hole. It measures 194 yards. This is one of those that I'm talking about with the yardages, though. Fantasy National has it as 194. I think PGA Tour there has it at 200, I believe. Yeah. Oh, I could be wrong. I'm getting one of these par 3s mixed up, but just know they're going to be changing the pin positions, right? But all 4 of these par 4s come under 200 yards if they are what they're playing according to the site here, right? So, which is a little bit different than what we've been seeing. We've been seeing some long par 3s over the last month, even ones that reach up to 250 yards. So that's why I think this course isn't as difficult. The par 3s aren't as demanding. This one sees birdies at a 17% rate. Excuse me. There's a huge bunker on the left side of the green. Depending on the hole position, some players might actually just try and hit the small fairway that sits to the right side of the fairway or of the green, excuse me, and just kind of run the ball up to the fairway there or to the green. I'm getting those two mixed up. Sorry. So lots of different ways that you can approach this mid-long par 3. Hole 8 is a par 4. It measures 428 yards long. Pretty straightforward hole, in my opinion. It's a slight dogleg right that starts with a tee shot into a chute of trees, and you can kind of see it there. I doubt that we'll see another goalpost or a football, goalpost, right, or field goal post um, on the broadcast this week. But this would be one of those holes where you'd probably want to put it up again because you just have this chute of trees that you can see in the picture there. And a lot of these holes kind of have that, but this one's definitely one that comes into mind. The fairway is rather narrow on this hole compared to other holes, and the green is protected by 4 separate bunkers. The green can be pretty tricky depending on the pin placement as well. So we'll just kind of see how that changes in scoring throughout the week. Hole 9 is a par 4. It is the toughest hole at TPC Deere Run. Again, par 4, it measures over 500 yards long. I appreciate you, Sons of Dynasty. Thanks for being in the chat there, man. I appreciate it. The distance of this hole will leave golfers with a long iron or a fairway wood into the green, enticing most players to actually just lay up and play it as a 3-shot hole and hope that you can just one putt and save par here. The fairway is narrow and it slopes up up and down like a roller coaster. That was the first takeaway that I had. It looks like a roller coaster when you're going through this long par 4, and you'll see a lot of slopes and elevation changes throughout the course. If you're watching it on TV this week, that's kind of one of the main defenses of TPC Deere Run. The hole sees the most bogeys on the course at just under 25%, and the least amount of birdies as well, I believe, at just 8.7% too. So, again, a lot of players are playing this as a 3-shot hole and just hoping to save par with a 1-putt, depending on how good your short game is or how good your wedges are. So, yeah, I appreciate it, TNFF. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks for joining, everybody. All right, moving on. We are on the back 9 now. So again, hole 9 was the most difficult hole on the course. If you're saving par on that one, you're probably going to be happy with it. We get to a pretty, I don't want to say easiest, but one of the easier holes on the course here. It is another par 5. This one is the longest hole on the course, though. It measures just under 600 yards long. The fairway is really wide for this one, especially for your first 2 shots, but the green is flat and small. So if you're playing it in 3, you're trying to lay up on that 3rd shot, it really starts to narrow once you get towards the green. The green is flat, like I said, though. So again, a lot of players tend to just go for a 3-shot hole and then try and 1-putt it for a birdie there. Still a great strategy, in my opinion. But it is protected by water to the right and a sloping bunker to the left. So not too many players go for this hole in 2, again, just because of that water, depending on how accurate you are with your long irons, right? But this is a really long hole, unless you are just dialed in with your fairway wood, right? I'm assuming most players will just lay up here and go for birdie. It doesn't even see eagles at a 1% rate. Birdies at a 32% rate, pars 59%, bogeys at just a little over 7 if you combine the two. So hey, bend over. Very original name there. Hole 11. A lot of these holes on the back 9 are pretty straight. We had a lot of dog legs on the front 9. Back 9, you see a lot of straighter holes here. Hole 11 is the 5th most difficult hole on the course. It's a par 4 that measures 432 yards long. Golfers will again see a tree-lined fairway that off the tee into a rather wide fairway. There's a small tree that sits on the left side of the fairway that you can actually kind of see in that picture there if you zoom in a little bit. And we're, again, using the PGA Tour website if you'd like to pull this up yourself. But the fairway slopes down into the right side of the trees where golf balls will get lost. The 3 bunkers around the green will also be one of the defenses of this hole. Again, 5th most difficult hole on the course. You see bogeys at a 14% rate, but you still get birdies at a 17% rate. So yes, it is difficult. It does play slightly over par, but some guys will be scoring on this. So, the winning score tends to see, like, again, 20 under par, but there's going to still be a lot of guys that are only, 1 to 2, 3, 4 strokes under par. There's a lot of scoreable holes here, but there's also some difficult holes here that, maybe unexperienced players that haven't played this course before might fall into a few traps throughout the week. Just laughing at the chat. You guys are entertaining me here tonight. I appreciate it. All right. Moving on to hole 12. This is a par 3. play slightly over par as well. So again, the back nine has some more difficult holes. Hole 10 is pretty easy, right? But the next two holes are, they both play slightly over par. So it's not like everyone's going to be scoring birdies on all of these holes. So again, hole 12, again, rather large par three here, or long par three. It is a tree line fairway into a well bunkered green. I'll have to double check on these yardages. I can't always trust Fantasy National, but have to double check. This is one of the bigger greens on the course, but there is trouble all around it. There are 4 deep bunkers that surround the hole, and they also have a lot of undulations on this green, probably more undulations and slopes than a lot of the other greens, even though it is rather large. You'll probably see some 3-putts on this hole potentially, again, since it is a par 3, but you see bogeys at a 13% rate, birdies at the exact same rate as well, so 13%. So, yeah, I guess an average hole. Hole 13 is a par 4. This is the 12th most difficult hole in the course. It plays 0.08 strokes under par. It sees birdies at a 21% rate. It has a fairway that has bunkers on both sides to a green that sits in front of a group of trees and is guarded by 2 large bunkers to the left and a large slanting berm on the right that might be able to kind of kick some of those balls back onto the green depending on where your approach is coming from. So again, pretty straightforward hole here. 21% birdie rate, 10% bogey rate. Lots of guys will probably be scoring under par on the 13th par 4. The 14th hole is a 361-yard par 4. It is the shortest par 4 on the course. It is drivable for some PGA Tour players. Again, since this is a straight hole compared to the dogleg on the other short par 4, again, you do see some eagles on this one. Little under 1%. A lot of these eagles that come on these par 4s will be chip-ins rather than driving the green, just because you're hitting it so close to the green there. But the tee shot presents another great risk-reward option for golfers, as the drivable, highly contoured green is defended by bunkers, and it's what's known as the Valley of Sin, which is a tightly mowed ditch that sits a little below the hole to the left, that will leave golfers with a blind shot towards the green. So imagine like you missed the green, right? I'm just sweating thinking about this shot. And you're sitting down in a ditch and you probably have a blind tee shot. You probably can't see the flag and you're just chipping it, 20, 30 feet above the hole. I don't know how deep it is, but I know it definitely elevates quite a bit as you get up towards that green there. So I know I would be, I know I'd be sweating there. Hole 15 is a par 4. It's 484 yards long, so another rather difficult hole. This is the 3rd most difficult hole on the course. Sees bogeys at a 19% rate, birdies at a 13% rate. Probably the toughest hole in the back 9. It is long and tight, and it gets to another narrow green. So some things that I noticed from looking at these, all 18 of these holes, there's really large bunkers. I wouldn't say all of them are like the deepest, but like they're really big. Like they are wide. They'll take up, large part of the side of the fairway there, even around the greens there too. There's also a lot of narrow greens. So like they're not the smallest, right? But they're narrow to where like they're vertical, and what I mean by that. So very narrow green here on the 15th hole. If you miss this green, you're definitely going to be scrambling. There's a lot of large bunkers that kind of fits throughout the contours of this course or the slopes of this course. So like the bunkers will also slope as the course or as the fairway slopes too. So again, they're really big, so they're going to have to kind of fit with how the course plays. All right, moving on to the par 3 16th hole. It is one of the best sites on the course. The par 3 sits on a bluff about 40 feet above the Rock River. It's really going to provide some great sights as the golfers close up their, 18 holes here. You can definitely, you cannot miss left here. There's a kind of a slope that goes down into the Rock River if you miss the greenside bunker. It's a pretty large greenside bunker to the left, but it's really not too difficult up on par 3. A lot of the courses that we've been looking at, they're like signature holes, right, are difficult rather than this one. This one sees birdies at a 21% rate, bogeys at just about 10% if you combine bogeys and double bogeys. So again, scoreable hole here as you close up your back 9, but it's also going to provide some really nice views. You can't really see it in the picture there, but I encourage you to look at it in the future. Hole 17 is a par 5. This one measures 569 yards long. It is also a rather difficult, or sorry, rather easy hole. Excuse me. Sees birdies at a 40% rate. It plays 0.35 strokes below par, so it's probably going to be reachable in two for some of the longest hitters. It does see eagles at a 2.5% rate, but they're going to have a perfectly placed tee shot to do so. The fairway is tight and it is tree lined. There are also bunkers to the front of the green too. The green is elevated slightly and also has some bent grass collection areas all throughout the sides of the green too. So again, there is long rough here. So, you're definitely going to want to look at short game a little bit, just depending on, I don't know. I'm not really looking at it a whole lot because if you're missing greens, you're not going to be contending in these birdie fests. So, we've been looking at short game players for a lot of the last month or so, especially with majors, right? That's understandable. But I'm really not looking at it a whole lot. It's more of a greens and regulation week than scrambling week. And we move on to the last hole. It is the second most difficult hole on the course. So this hole and the 15th hole are the two most difficult on the back nine. It's a great finishing hole that will put a premium on driving accuracy. If you hit it long and straight, you can avoid the fairway bunker on the left side of the fairway, but you must keep it to the left side, like I was saying. From there, it is a long shot to a deep and once again a narrow green that is guarded by two large bunkers on the right and a long and narrow pond that you can actually see in the picture there. Kind of hard to see since the picture is not an aerial view there, right? But it is going to be some water that will come into the final hole there. You see bogeys at a 21% rate and double bogeys at a 4.3% rate. So, you'll hear it all week long, right? This course is very difficult, but the closing hole is, very easy. I keep mixing up my words tonight. Sorry, thinking ahead. But this hole is pretty difficult. The course as a whole is easy, right? But the final hole will be difficult. We've seen so many meltdowns on the final hole over the last few weeks. Obviously, if you're watching Sunday, you saw Atigala double bogey the final hole. So um, hopefully we don't see anything like that again, especially if it's guys that we have money on, right? But this hole is definitely going to be one of those holes that we might see a meltdown. Yeah, 25% total bogeys, 13% birdies, plays 0.17 strokes above par. So second most difficult hole on the course is the final hole, par 4, measuring 476 yards long. So if you have any questions about any of these holes, you can throw it in the chat. I'm going to take a drink and a breath here quick. Excuse me. If you have any questions, again, throw it in the chat. I'm going to just kind of briefly go through some guys that I like this week. Again, the DraftKings salaries are pretty atrocious as I was predicting, but again, I kind of like these DFS weeks just because you can, in my opinion, use stats a little bit more because, let's be honest, like when we were running models for the US Open, like the top players in the world are always going to be up top there. But, when we're running models this week, we're going to get guys like John Huh and, gosh, I don't even know. Let's just find a random name down here. Like Jim Knaus. He was at the top of one of my stats, I think, putting on bent grass, I think. So I think, again, I kind of like these weeks just because you can use stats a little bit more. And again, I think people are not taking it very serious. So that's just an advantage in itself. Okay. Let me get my notes up here, my guys that I have written down. Excuse me. I do have a lot of guys written down, but I'll kind of talk about, what I like, what I don't like potentially, and then we will get out of here. If you have any questions, again, throw them in the YouTube chat. If you want to know really anything early ownership, I can try and pull that up here quick. I don't know if Fantasy National has. Oh, yep, they have their DraftKings salaries in, so that is good. But yeah, I'll get some ownership up here quick. If you have any questions on that, you can let me know, of course. But some guys that I like. So, of course, you can view my event and course preview article on Fantasy Points each and every week. Throughout that, you can see some course history options to consider each week, stats to look at. Of course, you'll see a nice course preview like we've been looking at throughout this live stream. I think we get a little more in depth on it, of course, on the live stream, but Again, feel free to look at that free event and course preview article courtesy of Fantasy Points. And again, use the code NES22 to get you a nice little discount on the subscription package. So some guys that I like. First guy is Nick Hardy, and I'm just gonna I don't have much written down on these guys just because I've been focusing on the the live stream and that kind of stuff, looking at the course so much. And honestly, too, like I had two guys really written down before we started, or I guess before I put out the article this morning that withdrew already. So I kind of liked Kurt Kitayama just a little bit, and of course, like a lot of people, I liked Davis Riley before he withdrew last night. So didn't write a whole lot down because I didn't want to get burned again and have notes on a guy that pulls out. And who knows, there might be someone that withdrew right now. Should probably pull that up before we get going on that. But yeah, with withdrawals, of course, odds are always going to be changing. So make sure that you get your bets in early if possible. But yeah, it looks like we don't have any afternoon withdrawals this week, or at least today. We'll see how it goes throughout the week. So Nick Hardy again was the first guy that I pulled up here. Let's pull up his year stats here quick. Really like Hardy this week. He had a really great season on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. He had 4 top 10s, 7 top 20s. He didn't have any wins on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, but he was always near the top. I just remember him always kind of being near the top of the salary when you're playing Korn Ferry DFS. But I think he finished 20th in points, so not the greatest, right? But he's really been trending upwards since he had a left wrist injury that came during the Zurich Classic, which he actually finished T21 in. So I'm not sure how he finished that with the injury, but he pushed through that. But since then, he took really just only a month off, but he continued. He returned to a Korn Ferry Tour event at the end of May. He finished runner-up there. He finished T35 at the Canadian Open, T14 at the U.S. Open, and T8 at the Travelers. So he's really been trending upward since returning from that injury. He kind of had a pretty shaky, start of the season. Lots of missed cuts, T36, T26, T28, T67. So not a lot of great finishes at the beginning of the year, but he's starting to kind of find his swing a little bit. Gained on approach in 3 straight events. I'm assuming that'd be 4 if we had Korn Ferry Tour stats. Gained strokes off the tee in 2 of the last 3. Gained strokes putting as well. He gained almost 2.3 at the U.S. Open. So might be kind of finding it with his putter as well. And you really need to have a hot putter this week to contend. So is Nick Hardy going to win this event? Maybe not. He actually does have some course history here, though. He finished T55 2017, T43 in 2018. So, again, also not the greatest, but just a guy that's been playing well. He's got the recent form that I like to look at, and he's played this course before. So it doesn't, there's been guys that have won this event that are first-time players here. I know course history is really important, right? But that kind of leads me into my essential question. Because Nick Hardy is a golfer that fits this narrative. There's a lot of guys that won this event for the very first time, or won their first PGA Tour event at this course, and also a couple that won at the very first time playing this course too. So, for example, Jordan Spieth won his first career event, and he was the first teenager to ever win on the PGA Tour in 2013. Again, Brian Harmon won his first PGA Tour event the following year in 2014. Bryson DeChambeau won his first career event at TPC John Deere in 2017. Michael Kim had his first and only victory in 2018. Dylan Fratelli won in 2019. That was his first PGA Tour event as well. So, reasons for that. One, it's an easy golf course, right? So when we get these easier courses, really anyone can win. These guys are professionals. It just takes 4 really hot rounds like Michael Kim, right, to just get really hot and go out there and win. So really anybody can win this event, in my opinion. But also it's a weak field too. So, it'd be interesting to see what the scores would be if we had a loaded field here. But, really anyone can win, especially now that Riley WD'd Berger was a withdrawal this morning too. So it's wide open. Nick Hardy, again, kind of fits that narrative of a guy who could win his first PGA Tour event here. But again, he's just trending upward. I think he's a pretty solid play this week. Next guy that I want to talk about is Cameron Champ, and this is my probably squeamish play of the week. Anytime you play Cameron Champ, you're not really feeling great about it, but again, he's a guy that just pops, a couple times a year, and when he does, he's in contention to win. He's won on tour each of the last 3 seasons. Last year, he finished. Let me pull it up here quick. Finished T11 at the John Deere Classic, but coming into the event, he had 4 missed cuts and a WD in 5 events. So he was not looking good when he had his T11 finish again here last year. And then he went out and won the 3M Open the following week, too. So, again, he just kind of pops out of nowhere sometimes. He's not really a guy that has to be in amazing form to go out there and contend, for example. If you look at some of his results this year, finished T10 at the Masters after a couple of missed cuts, a couple of 60th place finishes, really had terrible finishes all the way up to this year, and then finished T10 at the Masters. So, I don't know if he's necessarily like an easy course specialist, but he can really bomb it off the tee. I think he ranked first in strokes gained off the tee last year. He just didn't really have it in a couple other aspects of his game. But I think I saw that he's a decent putter from 5 to 10 feet too when I was looking at those numbers. So don't mind Cameron Champ. He's probably the one that I'll like warn you guys, like, do not go 100% Cam Champ, right? But like he had an attractive number when I was looking at it. I'll have to pull it up again, but when you get guys like like Scott Stallings, I think is like 25 or 35 to 1, right? Cameron Champ is a proven winner on the tour. He's won 3 events. I think I saw him at 50 to 1. I don't have the odds in front of me right now, but I just kind of liked his number. Again, for a proven winner, a guy with lots of winning upside. Terrible form right now, but I don't really think you have to have great form here to, do well at the John Deere Classic, for example. So few more here. Adam Svensson, I talked about him a little bit. Another guy that can get some birdies. He had some pretty good results earlier this season, and then I kind of had to jump off him because he had some missed cuts. Kind of in May, really. That's where those came. He had some top 10 finishes earlier. He's T7 at the Sony Open, actually, T9 at the Honda. He's been trending upward as well. He's made 4 or 5 cuts in a row now, a couple of top 25 finishes recently. So I do like Svensson. He's another guy that could win his first PGA Tour event here this year. He actually does have some wins on the Korn Ferry Tour. Last year, he won the Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship that was hosted in Ohio. So, Midwest, right? He also won the Club Car Championship. I think that's in Georgia. Both of those, again, being Korn Ferry Tour events. But, it's a guy that can win. So I do like Adam Svensson this week a little bit. So a few other guys I just want to briefly go over and just give some thoughts, and then we will get out of here. Again, if you have any questions on stats on any of these guys or really anything in general, let me know. So next up we got Webb Simpson's the top price golfer this week. I kind of feel like most people are just going to lock him in DFS, and it's hard to tell you not to. He clearly is. I mean, now that Berger's out, he is definitely the best golfer in the field. It does look like his DraftKings price. They just kind of forgot to adjust things when Berger withdrew. I'm assuming Berger was at 11,000. I'm assuming they probably had Riley at like 10.8 or something like that. So now the top price golfer is only $10,600. So that really allows you to, get pretty flexible too when you start, if you put Webb Simpson in your lineup. So I'm probably going to go there. I don't know, though. I mean, I would not be shocked if Simpson is 30, 40% this week. Like, again, just because people are going to look at this event, again, with that, the mindset of this event sucks. Like, I'm not going to put much time into it. When you don't put much time into it, you aren't very confident about it. So you just go to the safest plays. If you pull up your DraftKings app, right, Webb Simpson at the top, he's probably the safest play, right? So not necessarily, I guess. There's other golfers that are safer to make the cut, in my opinion, but he's probably got, he definitely has the most winning upside out of all these golfers. And, Adam Hadwin is $200 cheaper. Could you imagine telling yourself that, like, I don't know, 4 months ago, even a year ago, that Webb Simpson is just $200 more than Adam Hadwin? But here we are at the John Deere Classic, right? So, so Adam Hadwin's the next price golfer there, 10-4. Really can't hate on it too much as well. I just don't like the price, and I'm sure most people will be there with me as well. But he actually ranks near the top of a lot of stats. Strokes gained total, he's just been killing it in general, at least for this field. So has a few top 10 finishes this year. Looks like one top 5. He has 7 top 20s as well. Gaining strokes in all major stat categories on the season. So he's having an overall good season for Adam Hadwin. But again, it's the price. The price definitely, um, you know, leaves much to be desired, of course, especially when Webb Simpson is just right up above there. I really wish Berger and Riley were in the field. It'd be fun to just load up on all 3 of those guys and just kind of figure it out after that. But I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do at the top of the board yet. Like I said, I'll definitely be playing some Webb Simpson. I know his ownership will be ridiculous, but I used to look at these events kind of as a way to like try new strategies, right? Like just go against the grain. Like if you don't want to put much time into it this week, which again I understand. Like we all kind of need a break from this time to time, right? But um, like just go against the grain if you're feeling lazy with it. That's sometimes a good strategy. Just kind of get different play guys that aren't getting a lot of ownership, and you never know. Again, anyone can go out and win this week. So few other guys. Thigala is right below him there at, gosh, let me get that pulled back up, $10,100. And, I do like Thigala quite a bit. I actually liked him a lot last week. I only had a top 40 bet on him last week, which clearly wasn't sweating a whole lot, but it was one of those situations where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't put an outright on this guy. And then luckily I didn't feel too bad about that afterwards. But I feel bad for the guy. This is the second time this season that he's kind of fell apart on the final couple holes. When he was literally, I think a lot of us thought he was going to win yesterday, and especially at the Phoenix Open too, where he finished third. I think he blew up on the 17th hole of that one. So I remember him being pretty chalky the following week at the Genesis when he blew up at the Phoenix Open, and he finished T48 there. So I don't know. Again, he's a great golfer, but he has a major price increase just because of his, how he did last week. So I don't know. I think he's going to get some ownership too because he was very highly owned in Showdown all weekend. I just think he's kind of becoming a somewhat popular golfer. So I don't know if it's too high. I might have to fade that, which is a little scary, right? He does have some winning upside, but I'm a little worried that he's a little burnt out from what happened on Sunday. A few other guys. So I think another essential question, I didn't write this up, but you need to make a decision on what you're going to do with these course history guys. Zach Johnson, Stricker, Ryan Moore, Scott Brown. Let me pull up my other guys on my preview article here quick. Lucas Glover, Charles Howell III, Ches Reavie, Adam Shanks 2 for 3 and made cuts, but he's finished T4 and T6. Again, Scott Brown 7 of 9. He's finished T4, T5. 7th, T12. I think he was 4th last year. Maverick McNeely is 2 for 2. Patton Kazire. Those are a little, they haven't made as many cuts, right? But those first 3 guys, Stricker, Ryan Moore, Zach Johnson, they're going to be pretty highly owned. Last year, Stricker and Zach Johnson were both 20+%. And I think they're actually higher priced than what they are right now, too, just by a few $100s. And this field's much weaker, too. So you really need to make a decision on what you're doing with those guys. I liked playing them last year. They all paid off really for their salary. I know their ownership was ridiculous, but I don't know. I was kind of getting mad at myself this last weekend because I didn't play guys that I spent so much time on, writing up their course history, and they made the cut, and I was left with a bunch of guys that missed the weekend because I was trying to get different, for example, and avoid the ownership. So I don't know. You need to figure out your own lineups, of course, right? But if you can find ways to get different in other areas with golfers that will, make the cut, you can just kind of throw in these guys as safe locks to make the weekend. And, who knows? Zach Johnson could find some magic this weekend and get a top 10 finish. Stricker finished 2nd at the U.S. Senior Open last week. He had an awesome Sunday shot, 6 under par. Ryan Moore, up and down player, but he has been really incredible at this course too. So that's another thing that you have to make decisions on. I would not play like all 3 of those guys together because they're probably going to be close to 15-20% ownership just because their price allows you to do so. But so that's my opinion on those guys. I guess I'm telling you to make your own opinion on them, but I wouldn't go too add them all in your lineups, but I'm definitely going to be playing them because they're almost locks to make the cut. Zach Johnson, 16 to 17 made cuts here. Stricker's never missed a cut, 14 for 14. Ryan Moore is 11 of 12. So just, again, really safe options here. Cash locks, in my opinion. You can play all three of those guys and you have a lot of salary left over. But the problem is this week is like there's not great options at the top to where you feel great about, starting with these four, right? Or these three, and then you can play three top price players, right? But like you could play these four, but then if you're playing Webb Simpson, Adam Hadwin, and like Denny McCarthy, for example, two of those guys up top could miss the cut, in my opinion. Just because you never know with this kind of event. Anything can happen, in my opinion. So I think another way to get different is playing those guys, but then leaving a decent amount of salary, and playing some 8K guys, maybe filling it out that way. That's really going to be different. So a few more here. Patrick Rogers is a guy that gets a lot of birdies. He has some decent results on this course. I think he finished T23 last year. So, again, another guy that tends to score birdies in bunches. Denny, hot with the putter. You really need to be hot on the putting surface this week. Chad Ramey has a win this year. He also ranks really highly in stuff such as birdies are better, I believe, and then just strokes gained on easy courses. Adam Shank, another guy, got to make a decision on him. I assume he's going to get some buzz now that he's finished top 6 in the last 2 years or last 2 events. John Hunt also been playing really well recently. I think he's gained strokes tee to green in the last few events. Ches Reavie is another guy that has pretty good course history. He has made 7 of 9 cuts, finished T5, T15, and T18 as his best finishes. And then 2 other guys, Mark Hubbard, Ryan Armour. Those are always 2 guys that I like on courses where, short, a little bit of a premium on driving accuracy, not as much this week, but, guys that aren't going to, be contending at, those long courses such as, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't know, a long course such as the PGA Championship, for example, or the Masters, right? But anything, that you get close to 7,200 or a little under 73, I think is a pretty good option for those 2 guys. So that is all I got for this week. If you have any other questions, of course, you can reach out to me on Twitter or you can hit up the Fantasy Points Discord, of course. Otherwise, I really appreciate you all being here. Thanks for, hitting up the chat this week. I, love seeing that quite a bit. If you could leave a subscription or, hit the subscribe button before you head out here today for Fantasy Points for the PGA page. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody. Again, embrace the pain this week, okay? Do not, go away from your strategy. I think a lot of people will be kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but they're just going to be, again, letting the week event, narrative get to their head, and that's how they'll be treating their strategy as well. So embrace the pain. Like I said, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.